Beautiful, thank you. Jerusalem Prelude, I believe. Beautiful. Good morning to everyone with us today. Those of us in this space and those of us on live stream. I am Richard Davis Lowell, and I am one of several worship associates here at First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco. We are led by, and I am joined this morning by, on the chancel, our senior minister, the Reverend Vanessa Rush Southern, who will be bringing our message a little later. We hope all of you here or on live stream have an order of service so you can follow along in worship. For those of you who are joining us on live stream, if you have any questions or problems at any time, please signal and know that someone is monitoring our chat to answer those questions. Thanks to our musicians and their offering today, the incredible Rami Bar-Neve, our pianist, Akani Ota, our song leader, and William Garcia Ganst, our pianist. And to our video and production crew who make the live stream possible, Eric Shackelford, Jonathan Silk, and Linda Mesner, who makes our space so special. So in this week between nationally giving thanks and welcoming salvation, we rest, reflect, and prepare for what is to come. Relax, take a breath, and be in this time we have together. Welcome to worship. And now I invite you to join with me in our unison chalice lighting. The words are shared in our order of service. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment. We light this symbol of our faith as we gather together. And now, please take a moment to greet one another, especially saying hello to someone you don't know. We'll hear a musical cue when it's time to come back together again. What a lovely sound, the sound of community. And now, please rise as you are able in body or spirit for our first hymn of the morning. It's our hymn of the month and will be led by, it's number 226 in our gray hymnal. And our song leader will take it away from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Akane. Today we're beginning our service in an act of land acknowledgement, part of a larger effort that we're participating in to name a fuller and more complete and honest story of our nation, and to live into how that fuller version calls us forward in accountability and restoration and reparative acts. Standing alone, this land acknowledgement would be moral theater and cheap grace. But as part of a regular rewriting of the history we tell, building a relationship with our Native siblings, their history, culture, and supporting the repatriation and rematriation of land and visibility, as we will again today in our offering, with all of that, it has the ability to call us into integrity, wholeness, and healing. So in that spirit, we say the words of the land recognition given to us by Andy Galvin of the Ohlone Nation. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of San Francisco and the peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place as well as for all people who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Please join me, if you will, now in saying some of the promises that we make here to one another in this community, in this place. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. Please rise as you're able to sing our doxology together.
We are proud to offer deep gratitude to the tribal band of Ramaytush Ohlone peoples and their lands that cover Northern California and stretch down the Pacific coastline. That is a land acknowledgement begun before a production at the American Conservatory Theater here in San Francisco. On another occasion, I ride with a guide at Pepperwood Preserve in Santa Rosa. Our host tells me how indigenous practices have been reintroduced to preserve and further align Pepperwood's mission, which is advancing science-based conservation of ecosystems throughout Northern California. Land acknowledgements, recognizing the historic presence of Native peoples and indigenous practices, have been seeping into my awareness. A statement here at the start of a theater production, a visit there to a nature preserve, a story on PBS about the late, great American hockey player Henry Boucher. Well, it's Thanksgiving, and it dawns on me the entire packaging of American Thanksgiving celebrates the coming together of indigenous peoples and European colonists around foods native to the region. The region in my memory is New England. I remember in my social studies textbooks and their depictions of the first Thanksgiving, European women in long dresses with aprons, European men in period costumes with odd-shaped guns pointing to the sky. Native peoples, generally men in traditional attire, bringing provisions to picnic tables set up in the midst of a small village. Knowing warm smiles all around as the food was placed on the tables. The moment was always depicted in color in my textbooks and as one of peaceful coexistence. And maybe for a moment it was. But I've come to learn that, like most things in life, it was a bit more complicated than that. The treatment of North American indigenous people by colonizers, taken in total, was beyond abysmal. I've come to understand that they occupied these lands for millennia, living out their lives generation after generation, the land and their practices woven into what they were and how they lived. And almost unseen but in plain sight, their presence echoes in my world. Words like Malibu, derived from the Venturino Chumash word meaning the surf sounds loudly. Seattle, named after Chief Siach of the Duwamish and Susquamish tribes. And Sonoma, from coastal Miwok language meaning Valley of the Moon. However, the unspeakable horrors, like the state of California paying out millions of dollars in bounties for Native persons killed, those horrors were never mentioned in my social studies books. Of one thing I'm sure, as a good friend shared, the scales of justice are nailed to the floor concerning the unforgivable evil meted out against Native peoples. It's hard to know what to think, what my response should be now that my eyes have been opened to these truths. Human history is filled with sad contradictions and complexities, but maybe nature offers me a way forward, a model of unadorned existence, inviting me to simply learn and adapt. Nature is not so complicated in this way. It exists to be learned from, experienced, and woe to us if we ignore it. I tend to do that in my daily life, surrounded by climate-controlled environments, artificially maintained and delivered foods, medicines, and entertainment. But nature will not be ignored. I'm seeing signs of that everywhere, and they're not pretty. Drought, fires, floods, and storms are all telling me that nature and my place in it can't be ignored. Nature is just there, thank you very much. It doesn't need my help, maybe to protect it, to acknowledge it, and move with it rather than against it, but it doesn't need my help. I need its help. I'm feeling these next few years are going to be tough for our nation, for people like me, and for expanding awareness of and participation in conversations like this one. So many, it seems, are not willing to and indeed do not want to enter into these conversations. Of course, that's my assumption. It's been good to learn that these conversations were happening already without me, and that I could coast a little and catch up sometime later. Well, later is now. I wonder what my part in helping to heal the gaping wounds I see around me will be. How can I be in conversation with folks who seemingly believe in enforced ignorance? It's tough, but maybe nature holds some answers. And on this day, in this quiet, sacred space, I remind myself again that I am a part of nature. I have a role to play that begins with awareness, acknowledgement, and respect for the lessons of the past. All of the lessons, paired with openness and willingness to learn new ones. I am living on land, unceded, that has been occupied for centuries by people who lived with nature. How did they navigate their challenges? What do they know that I do not? I need to listen deeply.
Our offering this morning will be given, as it is regularly for the last few years, for the Sogorea Land Trust, an effort to rematriate land to the Ohlone in the East Bay, reintroduce heritage growth and crops and plants and culture. This year at the sunrise ceremony at Alcatraz, there was a young group of Ohlone dancers who had newly been retaught the dances that had too expertly been erased from their community. It's in the spirit of this work of restoration and support we offer and gratefully receive the offering this morning. Our meditation this morning is drawn from the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Confederacy of 6 nations that have a tradition for opening and closing major gatherings with words that they call the Thanksgiving Address. Some of you may know it. Words that are also often used by individuals in the community as a ritual to recite at the beginning or the end of a day. This is not a quick grace, but rich and expansive in its acknowledgement. The words we'll use today are from the version written by John Stokes and Kanawa Hieton of the Turtle Clan Mohawk, unedited. At the end of each section of gratitude, I invite you to join me in saying, "Now our minds are one. Now our minds are one." Once. Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things, so now we bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. We are all thankful to our Mother Earth, for she gives us all that we need in life. She supports our feet as we walk about upon her. It gives us joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the beginning of time. To our mother we send greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one. We give thanks for all the waters of the world, for quenching our thirst and providing us with strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms: waterfalls and rain, mists and streams, rivers and oceans. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the Spirit of water. Now our minds are one. We turn our minds to all the fish life in water. They were instructed to cleanse and purify the water. They also give themselves to us as food. We are grateful that we can still find pure water. So we turn now to the fish, and we send our greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one. Now we turn to the vast fields of plant life. As far as the eye can see, the plants grow, working so many wonders. They sustain many life forms. With our minds gathered, we give thanks, and we look forward to seeing plant life for many generations to come. Now our minds are one. With one mind, we turn to thank all the food plants we harvest from the garden. Since the beginning of time, the grains, vegetables, beans, and berries have helped people survive. Many other living things draw strength from them too. We gather all the plant foods together as one, and we send them a greeting of thanks. Now our minds are one. Now we turn to all the medicine herbs of the world. From the beginning, they were instructed to take away sickness. They are always waiting and ready to heal us. We are happy they are still among us, those special few who remember how to use these plants for healing. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the medicines and to the keepers of the medicines. Now our minds are one. We gather our minds together to send greetings and thanks to all the animal life in the world. They have many things to teach us as people. We are honored by them when they give up their lives so we may use their bodies as food for our people. We see them near our homes and in the deep forests. We are glad they are still here, and we hope that it will always be so. Now our minds are one. Now we turn our thoughts to the trees. The earth has many families of trees who have their own instructions and uses. Some provide us with shelter and shade, others with fruit, beauty, and other useful things. Many people of the world use a tree as a symbol of peace and strength. With one mind, we greet and thank the tree life. Now our minds are one. We put our minds together as one and thank all the birds who move and fly about over our heads. The Creator gave them beautiful songs. Each day they remind us to enjoy and appreciate life. The eagle was chosen to be their leader. To all the birds, from the smallest to the largest, we send our joyful greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one. We are thankful to the powers we know as the four winds. We hear their voices in the moving air as they refresh and purify the air we breathe. They help us to bring in the change of seasons. From the four directions they come, bringing us messages and giving us strength. With one mind, we send our greetings and thanks to the four winds. Now our minds are one. We have now arrived at the place where we end our words. Of all the things we have named, it was not our intention to leave anything out. If something was forgotten, we leave it to each individual to send such greetings and thanks in their own way. Now our minds are one. In the spirit of gratitude for all that we give thanks for, and in the quiet of autumn, I invite us into the sacred silence that makes room for all things. During this time, if you are someone who has lost someone close to you in the past year, you are invited to stand or raise your hand in silent witness to the blessings of that life that you hold in your arms still and forever. I invite us into sacred silence. Our reading this morning is from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I once gave a lecture titled Cultures of Gratitude at a small private college where tuition ran upwards of $40,000 a year. For the allocated 55 minutes, I talked about the Thanksgiving address of the Haudenosaunee, the potlatch tradition of the Pacific Northwest, and the gift economies of Polynesia. Then I told a traditional story of the years when the corn harvests were so plentiful that the cases were full. The fields had been so generous with the villagers that people scarcely needed to work, so they didn't. The people became so lazy that they let the time for the corn ceremonies go by without a single song of gratitude. They began to use the corn in ways that the three sisters had not intended when they gave people corn as a sacred gift of food. They burned it for fuel when they couldn't be bothered to cut firewood. No one stopped the children when they kicked ears around the village in their games. Saddened by the lack of respect, the corn spirit decided to leave. At first, the people didn't even notice. But the next year, the cornfields were nothing but weeds. There was nothing to eat. The people sat in despair, growing thinner and thinner. When they abandoned gratitude, the gifts abandoned them. One small child walked out from the village and wandered for hungry days until he found the corn spirit in a sunlit clearing in the woods. He begged her to return to his people. She smiled kindly at him and instructed him to teach the people the gratitude and respect that they had forgotten. Only then would she return. He did as she asked, and after a hard winter without corn to remind them of the cost, she returned to them in spring. Several students in my audience yawned. They could not imagine such a thing. The aisles of the grocery store were always so well stocked. At our reception afterwards, there was enough food to feed a small village. The leftovers were swept into the trash bins placed conveniently at the end of the tables. Here ends our reading. many folks here have read Braiding Sweet Grass by Wall Kimmerer? Those of you who haven't, you have a treat in store. I just found out from my nephew that the class after him was asked to read it as the book that they read before they came to college this last year. Braiding Sweetgrass, whose subtitle is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants, is written by Wall Kimmerer, who is a scientist, a professor, and a member of Citizen Potawatomi Nation. She weaves, if you haven't already been exposed to her writing and speaking, she weaves her scientific insights into the insights of Indigenous worldviews, that of her own community and others. And throughout her writing and teaching, she models this practice of deep presence and attention to the natural world as a means through which wisdom is conveyed and relationships reveal themselves. Kimmerer's own ancestors were removed 3 times in the span of a single generation from the land that they knew as their own, first from Wisconsin to Kansas, onward through lands in between, and then finally to Oklahoma. Each time to relearn the land, the species, the cycles of harvest, and the nuances of each new landscape. And each time, despite being uprooted, they rebuilt a relationship to their new home, a relationship that embodied reciprocity and reverence. For Kimmerer and most of her Native and Indigenous siblings, that relationship means being invited by the land to understand our place in a web of undeniable interconnection and interdependence. The more I study the plants, Kimmerer writes, Kimmerer, who is an expert in mosses, the more I study the plants, the more I realize they do not live in isolation. Every plant, every tree, every leaf is part of an intricate web of relationships. To be present in nature is to understand that we are not separate from it, but woven into it. Zimmerer lives this reality even at her own home, knowing in the nearby fields where the harvest of wild berries or wild leeks can take place, seeking and planting the medicinal plants where they will thrive. There's one grove near her house that's host to a wild array of necessary species of medicinal herbs that she goes a few times a year to gather from. She arrives one spring to find her neighbor has cleared the land of the trees, sold them to be cut down. This neighbor who buys his medicine at the pharmacy has left all that grew in this place to burn in summer's heat. Zimmerer weeps and pounds the ground. The idea that Earth's treasures are resources to be mined for profit is foreign to Kimmerer and so many of her Native siblings. Her worldview comes from stories and presence to the real-time recurring cycles of giving, of attention, of gratitude, and of care. That sense of her story as part of the larger story of life is grounded in the story of Sky Woman. I don't know how many of you know that origin story of life as we know it on Earth. Sky Woman, the original woman who falls through space to be caught on the wings of a bird, set on the back of a turtle, Mud from deep in the primordial waters sought, each animal diving, holding its breath as long as it can, none able to succeed until the most likely of all does so, sputtering to the surface with a fistful of mud that it spreads at turtle's acquiescence on turtle's back. Mud, the story has, that's danced by Sky Woman in a dance of gratitude for all who've helped her find a home, danced into the earth. And into that earth, the woman spreads what she has grasped in her fall, ripped from the tree of life as she fell past it, a fistful of seeds and berries, and earth comes alive, and the animals that caught her are also now taken better care of in a cycle of gifts given and received and given and received, and the birds and the animals, everything joins her on Turtle Island where they too thrive. And here they continue. The story has it in cycles of mutual care that is their foundational story and the ongoing pattern of relationships they enter into naturally. To be human in relationship to nature, then, is about this reciprocity. About things like what Kimmerer calls the honorable harvest. Taking only what you need, grounded in your own robust and joyful sense of enough. Kimmerer's own community has a teaching, the teaching of one bowl, one spoon, to help them remember some of this worldview, this idea that all of life is held in one common bowl and all have to be fed by one spoon. At community gatherings, they literally pass around a bowl of berries, for instance, around the circle of people to remind folks as they each take their share of the fruit, taking only what they need so that all have some. And being reminded that the berries themselves ask in return for their sacrifice and gift to their human brethren, that in exchange that humans spread the seeds so berries too can flourish, a loop of gifts received and expanded and given and received. And it's all grounded in gratitude. Like earth that is danced into being from Sky Woman's gratitude for what plants and water and birds and animals had given her. The Haudenosaunee, as we shared today in the time of meditation and prayer, and as I told you then, begin their community gatherings and actually even the school days in their schools on their sovereign lands with the Thanksgiving address, the same one that Kimmerer teaches about in that class on the culture of gratitude to students who learn just what cultures founded in gratitude make foundational rituals and teachings so that they can live a culture of gratitude. Today we have gathered, and when we look upon the faces around us, we see that the cycle of life has continued. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. So now let us bring our minds together as we give greeting and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. And so begins the prayer that is over 800 words long. The one we said for Mother Earth and the waters of the world and the fish in the water, and the plant life and the medicine life, and those who know how to use the medicine, and the trees giving shade and sugar, and animal life and birds from smallest to largest, and the four winds that refresh and bring the seasons. And some add also to the thunder beings and elder brother the sun and oldest grandmother the moon, and stars like jewelry in the skies, and teachers through ages, and great spirit creator. Everything we need to live a good life is here on Mother Earth. The whole of this Thanksgiving address, Zimmerer writes, is so much that's set into words. They are, she writes, quote, a bill of responsibilities, an educational model, a family tree, a scientific inventory, a social contract, a way of being. But first and foremost, the credo for a culture of gratitude. Sometimes, Zimmer says, a student will say, it's lovely, but way too long. I'm sorry that you have so much to give thanks for, she will think to herself. Knowing that saying the fullness of it all is not just a ritual practice, but also can be medicine. By contrast, the Algonquin-speaking cultures talk of the monster Wendigo. Has anyone heard of Wendigo? I see some hands. Wendigo is a creature that embodies insatiable yearnings and greed. Wendigo that also stands for the consequences of excessive consumption and disconnection from the natural world, which are interrelated. Wendigo that destroys the human soul. I love the holidays that are coming up. I loved gift giving. It is one of my love languages. But I have to say, I'm also sitting, having read about Wendigo, about whether Wendigo is actually the mascot of Black Friday sales and gift exchanges that end up in landfill. And let me say, I just cleaned my daughter's room while she was away, and I found so many stocking stuffers from last year completely unopened that between you and me, she's going to get a few of them again in next year's stocking. And it's so lovely to live generously. That's such a value of mine, to live generously and make generosity manifest in our relationships. But I'm also thinking about the costs of my sense of what that pattern of generosity looks like when it's lived out, and what I can do to turn it. After all these generations since Columbus, Kimmerer writes, some of the wisest native elders still puzzle over the people who came to our shores. They look at the toll of the land and say, the problem with these new people is they still don't have both feet on the shore. One is still on the boat. They don't seem to know whether they're staying or not. Kimmerer writes, it's the same observation that's heard from some contemporary scholars who see in the social pathologies and relentlessly materialistic culture here the fruit of homelessness, that is to say, of a rootless past. How, she asks, to live as if we're staying with both she asks, come in. Beautiful sections to say now, but a long time. This project is more rooted doing it and how we is, you might call them. I had a teacher as elder who said at the end where we studied traditions of the if you love what I am, you this that's beautiful that you want for your and find something there that reaches your own. What would those are those all of us background? On the culture, one that had that was food to filled, one with the waste bins that all the excess was. She met one person who knew some of what from her own culture called her to the same way of being. That day, Zimmerer wrote, a beautiful young girl, dark hair tied in a headscarf, was waiting her turn. When nearly everyone had left, she approached me, gesturing with an apologetic smile at the wasted remains of the reception. I don't want you to think no one understands what you're saying, she said. I do. You sound like my grandmother back in my village in Turkey. I will tell her that she must have a sister here in the United States. In her house, we learned that everything we put in our mouths, everything that allows us to live, is the gift of another life. I remember lying with her at night as she made us thank the rafters of her house. Look at the rafters of our house, gorgeous redwood rafters. And the wool blankets that we slept in. In my grandmother's house, we were taught to kiss the rice. If a single grain fell to the ground, we learned to pick it up and kiss it, to show we meant no disrespect in wasting it. Where and how do we do the work to reground ourselves in what stories, in what practices, in what teachings that maybe already anchor us in reciprocity and in interdependence? How do we stay grounded in enoughness in a world that's constantly telling us and inviting us to see what we don't have and to see what we do have as not enough? How do we give thanks for moon and stars like jewelry in the sky and water and wind and plant medicine and grain and berries and trees for shade? Realize that we already have so much and the rest is superfluous. How do we stay grounded there and keep Wendigo and his evils or her evils at bay in our hearts, from our world and the one we make? In a world bent on having us see ourselves as Black Friday consumers and agents of production, what are the practices that ground us in our identity as people in relationship of giving and receiving, people in relationships of deep attention and reciprocity and care for all life? How do you and I, as Wall Kimmerer and Indigenous folks ask, live with both feet planted here on this turtle island, danced into being by gratitude, by a woman who dropped from the sky with nothing except what she clutched in her hand and what those around her gave her without question, out of relationships of care they knew to be the right ones, so that she could live too, the ultimate immigrant. How do we live like that, and only like that? Each of us comes, writes Robin Wall Kimmerer, from people who were once indigenous. We can reclaim our membership in the cultures of gratitude that formed our old relationships with living earth. Gratitude is a powerful antidote. A deep awareness of the gifts of the earth and of each other is medicine. Besides, it makes us happy. May we each find and claim, deepen and share our stories and practices of regenerative reciprocity. Share the ways we have found to live with both feet planted where we are, engaged only in the honorable harvests, and stay grounded in gratitude, committed to dancing a fuller life into being for all life that is interconnected in this web that is made strong when it is more fully whole and deeply, abundantly, and joyfully connected and alive. May we be so. May we make it so. May our minds, now and forever in these ways, be as one. Amen. I invite us as we close today to sing a hymn that I don't think I have ever sung before, though it is singable. It's hymn number 70. It's in our gray hymnal, Heap High the Farmer's Wintry Hoard. Let's rise in body and spirit and sing together.
Heap high the farmer's wintry hoard, heap high the golden corn, nor little gift has Adam poured from out the lavish Lord. Surveys of grass, enemies of flowers, upload their fallow seed, while on the hills the sun and shores of changeful apely played. We drove the seed over hill and plain, beneath the sun of May, and frightened from the sprouting grain, the rover grows away. Oh, through the with autumn's moonlit eyes. It's harvest time has come. We pluck away the frosted leaves and bear the treasure home.
Please be seated. Our service has ended, or our worship has ended, but our service and lives beyond this place have only just begun. I invite you all to participate in any or all of the things that are in our orders of service today. They're all open to you, and I want to call your attention to a few in particular. One is if you're a newcomer here and you want to find out more about this community, please come and join a couple of our members who will be there to share more about us, answer your questions. You can probably most easily find Nancy Hardy's in her bright autumnal yellow harvest jacket, and she'll lead you to the room where we gather. I also want to welcome Reverend Dr. Rosemary Bray McNatt. Rose, if you don't mind waving your hand. Rose is the president of our Star King School of the Ministry, here with her husband, Bob. And is John Behrens here, or is he prepping the best? Okay. John Behrens is here too, because today would have been the 200th birthday of Thomas Starr King, who shaped our nation, certainly our state, but our nation in powerful ways that if you don't know about, and he didn't found the seminary, but we founded it in his honor and in his spirit, and it continues to do the work of shaping seminarians in that spirit of service, big service in the world. So we have a lecture that you are all invited to. John has been doing some research, writing a book, and Rose is going to be there too in a joint program. So after service, please go get a cup of coffee, something, some fresh air, and then join us for the lecture in honor of Thomas Starr King's 200th birthday. We are so honored to be hosting and grateful to have you here, and Bob, to have you here supporting this event. Lastly, I just want to mention to you all that next week, which is December 8th, we hope you'll come to the holiday fair. All are welcome. It's a great time to catch up with old friends and make new ones, and there's going to be delicious food and drinks and contests and gifts and tables and surprises for all. See the flyer, if you haven't already, in the order of service for more details. You're still able to join the Holiday Fair Committee if you want to, but certainly we want you to join us in singing the second round of the Holiday Fair song, which will close out our invitations today. So I'm going to invite our Holiday Fair singing troupe up to the front, and the words are in your order of service. If you look for them, you'll find them.
Hello. In your order of service, go to the page that says Events, Meetings, and Volunteer Opportunities. And then look to Upcoming Happenings at the bottom. And there you will find the words to the Holiday Fair song, and we hope you'll volunteer to sing along with us for the second verse. And these are many of the members of the committee and volunteers for the Holiday Fair, and they're very excited to bring you the Holiday Fair song. Okay. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Come, 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 come to the Holiday Fair. Come, 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 your friends will all be there. We'll have some food and maybe some wine. We're all gonna have a very good time. So come, 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 come to the Holiday Fair. Okay, join us in, all right? We're gonna join in. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come, 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 come to the Holiday Fair. Come, 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 friends will all be there. We'll have some food and maybe some wine. We're all gonna have a very good time. So come, 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 come to the Holiday Fair. See you there. Yay!
we will extinguish our chalice, but invite us all to carry the flame with us in our hearts, the truth, warmth, passionate commitment into our lives beyond this place until we gather again together. I invite us now, if you're able in body, spirit, to rise, join hands as we live out the interconnection in our bodies that we live out in our commitments and connections in the world beyond this place. There we go. So in our comings and our goings, may the light of love shine upon us. Out from within us, be gracious unto us, and grant us peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.